Oh, man. We're up. Oh.
Hello, sportsmen. I hope you're ready for a show that's full of different ideas and practical subjects this week. You know, we've gotten a lot of questions about our ice fishing feature last week, so we're going to show you in some brand new footage how this electronic flasher fits into the ice fishing scene. Now, Sharon Duca has a superb recipe for creamy fish fettuccine. We have all our regular features. We're going to lead off with a home video. Bear hunting with a bow. This is the real thing, folks. You'll find out what it's like to be sitting in a tree with a live bear underneath. Stay tuned. I'm Fred Trost with lots of ideas on how you can become a more practical sportsman. This is a home video of one of many bear hunts that Reg Began and his family has taped near Thunder Bay, Ontario. In fact, Reg says they do all their bear hunting within 20 minutes of home. The area is loaded with bears. In fact, they're a pest to the local farmers. And Reg says last year they took 5 bears from one tree stand. Now, what you're seeing is what a bear hunter first sees. The bear walking in from a distance, usually taking their time, sniffing for food here and there. This is a nerve-wracking time for a hunter because you're hoping that this wandering bear, I mean, they don't stick to trails the same way deer do. You hope that it's going to come in front of your stand. Hunting for black bears with bows and arrows is almost always done from trees with a bait pile set, I'll say 10 or 15 yards away. The Begans have their bait pile in front of this stand, and the bear evidently knows it's there. Now in Canada, you're allowed to put bait in a container like you'll see in a moment. In Michigan, the bait has to be biodegradable and can't be in a container of any kind. Now baits which are used commonly are old meat, vegetables, candy. Bears are omnivorous, which means they'll eat most anything. Now this bear is circling the bait, figuring out how to get into it. Reg Began Jr. is on the camera. He pulls back to reveal his brother-in-law, Mick, poised for action with his bow. Now, in order to tell if a bear has been into the bait when the hunter is gone, big logs are usually rolled over the bait. Now, if they're moved, the bear has been there. And this is how a bear moves large logs. It dug its way down to that bait barrel. You can imagine how strong a bear has to be to move those logs with such relative ease. Now, Mick is a bit jittery. He knocks an arrow, but watch it wobble off of the arrow rest. Now, he's nervous, but it's a close shot, and he lets the arrow fly. Well, that's what you call a clean miss, underneath the neck of the bear. Now, I think the bear moved a bit as he was releasing the arrow, but it came mighty close. Now, oftentimes a wild creature like that would be gone, scared by the sound. But this bear apparently thought a stick fell from a tree because it just hopped away a few feet and came back, intent on getting its face back into the food. And for you scent fanatics, watch what happens next. The bear walks up and sniffs the arrow, that green fletching, and the knock is the part that Mick had touched just a few moments earlier. But this bear wasn't intimidated. Back to the bait pile. Now, you know a lot of animals live in areas around humans, and our smell doesn't scare all of them, but some are definitely sensitive to the human odor. Now, Mick has an unusual chance. He can take another arrow from his quiver, re-knock it, and have a second chance at a shot that he just blew. But would this shot be a good one to try? Good judgment, Mick. The angle was probably okay, but that tree is fouling up a clear shot. You know, this reminds me of 2 years ago when I was deer hunting with a broken leg. A very light aspen tree was in front of a deer like this, and I didn't see the bark. Well, I shot the tree and missed the buck. With a black bear, though, the tree is highly visible, and it's a big problem in this case. The only thing to do is to be patient, wait for the shot you know you can make. Don't take a chance on wounding an animal like this. Now, that's what Mick does. The bear backs up, and he gets his shot. That was a perfect shot through the lungs, a vital area. That bear will be dead within 10 seconds. And 45 seconds later, Reg Jr. puts the camera on Mick for his reaction.
There you go, buddy. Nice job.
You know what I did, eh? I compensated too low.
Yeah.
And I went right under him.
Yeah.
So the second one I put it about 4 inches above his gut. Perfect double lung shot, you watch.
He went down just over the ridge. The good thing is, he walked halfway back to the trail.
Yeah, that's good. We don't have to carry him that far. See the rubs on him?
Yeah.
That's not a rug bear. That's a meat bear.
It's a good size animal, though.
A couple 100 pounds.
It's a good size animal.
Bent 2 different ways.
Yeah.
The broadhead's completely snapped and busted right off. I think we're gonna find him piled up not too far away.
Okay, that's cool, bud.
The kill has been made. This will be meat in the freezer thanks to Reg Began from Thunder Bay, his son Reg Jr. on the camera, and son-in-law Mick on the bow. We could see a Canadian bear hunt the way it happens when everything goes right.
Got him, eh, buddy? Dead as a doornail.
I'd say about 150 maybe. Yeah, look at the rubs on.
Jeez, he's been doing some awful rubbing, eh?
Rubbing. There's where it went in. Flip more and see where it come out.
He didn't go, what,
Oh,
60, 70 yards?
50, yeah, 60 yards maybe. Yeah.
That was it.
For a home video, if you're a hunter, that was awesome. I mean, that showed so many aspects of what it's like to hunt bear, to hunt big game, be in a tree with a bow and arrow. But you know, there's one concern that people have, and I've had it myself over the years, and I think every hunter does, and that is, are we causing pain to the animals we shoot? I mean, they run off after we shoot, but you know, what's going on there? Now, this is a highly debated subject. The animal rights activists have their own ideas about it, but from everything I've read scientifically, from my experience in the field, my conclusion is this. You take an arrow like this. This is a razor-sharp arrow. This is the type that hunters use when they hunt deer, when they hunt bear and big game. This razor-sharp arrow goes through the bear. In fact, you saw it go through the bear just in an instant. I don't believe that an animal feels anything when something this sharp goes right through them. Now, you hope for one or two things to happen when you're taking a shot like this. You hope you either make a clean, humane shot like this guy did through the lungs, or you miss completely. You got to see both of those on that video. But as far as the humane aspect of shooting an animal, I guarantee you this. If I didn't think that hunting with a bow and arrow was humane, I wouldn't do it myself, and I definitely wouldn't put footage like that on television. I think that bear ran because when it was hit, the animal feels something, but it doesn't know what it is, and it spooks it, and they run off. They rarely run more than 100 yards. A lung shot is something that is fatal. Their lungs stop functioning within about 10 seconds. They're probably dead on their feet. They might get a little bit dizzy and collapse. But like I said, if I didn't think it was a humane way to take animals, I wouldn't hunt and I wouldn't put this kind of footage on television. But now, speaking of archery and some problems with archery hunting, let's take a look at one piece of that footage again. Remember this spot early in the video where the hunter had the arrow slip off the arrow rest? Oh, so many of us can sympathize with that. That's happened to just about everybody. Now, I wrote an article in the current Practical Sportsman magazine called Cold Weather Jitters, because that can happen, you know, at times late in the season when you're cold. But if you have a bear underneath you, you don't have to be cold to be jittery. There is a device on the market which can solve this problem. Depending on whether you buy it or where you buy it, it can cost between $10 and $15. Now, this is Gary Botek's high-tech bow, and he put one of these on his. It's called a stay-put arrow holder. Now, it's just a little piece of silicone that pivots on a thin wire right here, but the idea is you put the arrow on your arrow rest and go ahead and knock the arrow, like I'm going to do right there. Now, this piece of silicone, this stay-put deal, keeps the arrow in place. In fact, I can turn the whole bow upside down and that arrow isn't going to fall. Of course, a lot of people have had inventions something like this over the years, and it has affected the flight of the arrow. But I'm going to pull this baby back. Oh, Gary, I tell you, I wish you didn't have this cranked up to 78 pounds or whatever you got. I don't normally shoot a bow this, but I'm going to pull this baby back, and you're going to see that this little piece of silicone holds the arrow in place. Well, that's not too bad. I held that, but you see how it holds it in place right there? So I could still turn it and move it, and it isn't going to fall off. Now, when I release the arrow, the silicone moves forward. You can see it right there moving forward. In fact, if I did it quickly, it would flip right up and be right out of the way. That's called a stay-put arrow holder, something that you might want to consider if you tend to get the jitters while you bow hunt. And if you don't get the jitters, I think you're jiving me. Now, speaking of the jitters, there's other ways you can get jitters while you're bear hunting, and that is if the bear comes up the tree when you're not ready. Let's go back to our museum here at the bear exhibit and talk about that subject. As you enter the main exhibit hall in our museum, you first come upon this grizzly bear mounted by Roger Smith. Scares a lot of little kids. They kind of stop back there for a minute until they realize it's not moving. But if this bear was alive, it would be something to contend with. Now, this is a grizzly bear. What do you do if you're up in a tree and a bear comes up after you? Well, we've compared bear claws before to talk about how devastating they are, but this is the paw of a black bear. Now, you notice the claws are short and they're rounded. Now, these little short, round claws enable black bears to climb virtually any tree in the woods, even small saplings. They can go right up and dig their claws in. So, if you're up there, you're liable to have to fight off a black bear, which is the thing to do. Kick at it, scream at it, yell at it, and hopefully it'll go away. Grizzly bear, another story. Now, we've talked about these long, raking claws. If you're on the ground and a grizzly bear takes a swipe at you, oh, big time trouble. If you're going to go up a tree, go up a small tree, a small sapling, the smallest one you can find that can get you up at least 8 feet where you'll be out of reach, because these long claws on the grizzly, while they can be very damaging, aren't very useful in climbing a small tree. They can't dig it in, you know, around a small sapling. So they can't go up small trees, only big ones. Now, I hope this was a bit of useless information you're never going to have to use, but that's the story on bears climbing trees. Now, last week we did a story on ice fishing. We were using Sam Lehman's flasher, his fish finder graph. Gary Botek tried this, and it was absolutely sold.
John, this is one of these new Vexilars, and if you'll notice, as I let my bait down, you can follow it. Can you see that?
Yep.
And now down here, that little green is the fish. Have you got that?
Yep.
And you can see my bait going down to the fish, if I can get it untangled here. And you can see it going down to the fish.
Electronic flashers have lost favor among many summer fishermen, at least the buying public, in favor of the LCD graphs. But flashers are really superior, especially for ice fishing, when you can see the fish on the bottom. You can see your bait drop down there, and using a spring bobber, jiggle the bait a little bit and watch the fish come up and grab your bait. Unfortunately, the transducer in the hole can sometimes knock your fish loose.
There you go. Get him?
Oops! Gary Botek's moment of glory just swam away.
Oh no, there he goes. Oh, no,
Gary.
no.
Sharon Duca from Wayne has come up with another concoction here that is really unusual. We have, what, fettuccine noodles on the bottom? I did pretty good on getting some of those, but I got to get this fish on the top. Now, what do we have? What am I scooping out here?
It's called creamy fish fettuccine. It's a great way to use up small fillets that you don't want to pan fry or anything. It's just boiled fish and carrots and green pepper, mushrooms, mushroom soup, good old standby, herbs, and you just put it over fettuccine.
Now, this, by the way, this is not something that comes from Family Circle magazine.
No.
No, Sharon is not one of those types
No,
of cooks. No,
I just play.
no, she's the Mrs. Wizard of the kitchen. Always experimenting and trying. Now, what kind of fish do we have in this?
This particular time we have a lot of perch and one bass. I usually use bass.
Bass is not known for being a terrific eating fish.
No, it's not. That's why I've used it in here. I figured we could cover up the taste of it a little bit. He likes bass.
I like
I'm not
bass.
particularly
Bass
fond
is
of it.
very good. Yeah.
Okay, first.
If you fix it right, bass turns out real good.
Okay, now this is Sharon's husband, Nick, who seems to be an expert on bass here all of a sudden,
Well,
on fixing
I
it.
enjoy the bass.
Okay, how do you fix it right?
Well, Sharon usually, she doesn't fry too much fish anymore for us. She usually broils it or pans it with a little bit of butter and browns it that way. Or we cut it up and we fix it with the fettuccine. And this recipe turned out real good with the bass. And since we did it with the bass, we tried it with panfish. And we prefer it both ways.
Well, you know, this isn't, when you think of fettuccine and linguine and things like that, you think of heavily garlic things with sauce. But this isn't like that at all.
No, I like to taste the pasta. This doesn't overwhelm the pasta. I'm not a real spice eater. I like a mild spice.
Well, this is, it's very mild. And you mentioned green peppers as we were going through the ingredients, and
Yeah.
these are red.
Yeah, I didn't have any green, so I thought, well, let's put a little more color into it.
You know the difference between green peppers and red peppers?
Time.
No, about $2 a pound, I
Well,
think.
yeah.
I mean, they're terribly expensive.
And all it is time.
But this is, the mildness of this dish is what
Yeah.
impresses me. I think kids would like it.
Yeah, we have 2 grandkids that love it. So,
So you boned out the fish before you put it in here? I mean, you boiled it and,
yeah, and picked out all the little tiny bones, which
Yeah,
you know
because it's-
perch have.
yeah, lots
Well,
of.
I try filleting it up for her.
Yeah, he fillets it.
Fillet
and
it
then-
up, all the small fish, fillet it up for her. And very few bones after that, if there's any.
Well, if you want a mild fettuccine, you like pasta, you want a dish that is, I don't know how to describe it, I think it's just so mild and nice.
It's a light taste, but yet it's very filling.
Very filling. Boy, by the time we polish this off, we're going to be filled, I'll tell you that. Oh, this is great, Sharon.
Thank
Great.
you.
Sharon Duca's recipe for creamy fish fettuccine. Oh, she did write it down. It's right here, all the ingredients and instructions in the December-January Practical Sportsman magazine. Get a pencil and a piece of paper out. The address is coming up at the end of the show. Now, if you flip to page 41 of the magazine, you'll find 4 pages here of 4-color Practical Sportsman Fishing Awards. This is an impressive picture of Dale Dudar from Winnipeg holding a 44-inch native lake trout he caught from Athaparusco Lake in the Flin Flon region of Manitoba. Now, he used a jig with sucker meat, but you know, after taking this picture, he put that huge laker back, hopefully to breed many more smaller ones that people will keep and eat in the future. Now, to localize this lake trout business to Michigan, I picked the 2 top inland lakes that produce lake trout. That's Higgins Lake in Houghton County and Crystal Lake in Benzie County. And checking the months that the trophies are caught, it looks like Higgins Lake produces early in the year through the ice. Crystal Lake produces a little later in the spring. In fact, they have 4 that showed up here in the month of July. Let's drop down here and change the subject to steelhead trout. I wanted to run a comparison to find out the difference between the lake steelhead, the ones that are caught in the Great Lakes, that's represented by the blue line, versus the river trophy steelhead, represented by the red line. Not too much at the end of the year, but the first part of the year is when the fish are caught in the rivers. The red represents that, February, March, April. The next 3 months coming up is when we're going to have the trophies caught in the rivers. June, July, and August are when the trophy steelhead are caught in the lakes. Now that, July 27th, is when our featured angler here, Ron Nijkamp from Holland, he caught this 19-pounder on a Northport nailer in Lake Michigan off Ottawa County, right there at the top of the season in the Great Lakes. Now, Little Bay de Noc off northern Lake Michigan is also a hot spot for many species, including this 11.5-pound walleye, which Mike Peterson from Medford, Wisconsin, well, he bought his non-resident license to catch. That was over 31 inches long. He caught it on October 20th. That's the opening of our pheasant season. Bay City taxidermist Keith Lutz is quite a bass fisherman. Here's a 23-inch, 7-pound, 3-ouncer he caught on a jig and pig from Smallwood Lake in Gladwin County. That was in early October. 3 days later, he caught 2 more largemouth. The largest was 21 inches, which qualifies for our awards. All these caught on jig and pigs in October, when a lot of sportsmen are bow hunting, like Greg St. John from Battle Creek, who a few days later in October took this 8-point from Calhoun County. But look at the spread, 25.25 inches. Wow. Now back to fishing in October. Bob Soleil from Rochester Hills was jigging a Mr. Twister in Wexford County's Lake Mitchell, landed this super 21-inch smallmouth bass. Steve at Pilgrim Village in Cadillac verified the catch and will make Bob Soleil our practical sportsman, smallmouth bass fisherman of the week. And if it doesn't rain, get outdoors this weekend. It's a great place to be. See you next week.